All right, so we're diving into Docker today.
Okay.
You sent over this Apna College video. Looks like you're ready to really get into this containerization world.
Absolutely.
I have to say,
Yeah.
even I, get a little lost sometimes with all the tech jargon.
Right.
But that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
to kind of break it down
Exactly.
and figure out how Docker can actually help us out.
Make our lives a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything's easier.
So what's interesting to me about Docker is that it kind of addresses this pain point that's been around forever
Yeah.
in software development. You know, remember?
Yeah.
Back in the day when we were like wrestling with dependencies,
Yeah.
trying to get everyone on the same page.
Right.
It's like Docker came along and said like, nope,
Nope.
not more.
It's so funny you say that because the video actually uses this perfect analogy
Okay.
about a new developer
Right.
joining a team. And it's that classic scenario where they spend days, maybe even weeks,
Oh, yeah.
just trying to set up their environment
Absolutely.
to match everyone else's.
Just to get started.
I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
It's not fun.
Painful.
And you think about the ripple effects of that, right?
Absolutely.
All that time spent on setup
Yeah.
is time lost on actual development.
Absolutely. And not to mention the potential for errors is just huge.
Right.
One tiny
Some little thing.
version mismatch
Oh, yeah.
can just throw everything off.
Throw the whole thing off.
Yeah.
And it's not just a new developer problem either, right?
No, it's not.
Even seasoned developers run into these issues,
For sure.
especially when you're talking about deployments.
Especially deployments.
It could get really messy.
Yeah, things can get out of hand.
So how does Docker help solve that?
Well, Docker really shines in that area.
Okay.
What it allows you to do is it lets you encapsulate everything your application needs. The code, the runtime, the libraries, all of it,
Wow.
into a self-contained unit that we call a container.
Okay.
So whether you're handing off your project
Okay.
to a teammate or deploying to a server,
Right.
it's like delivering this perfectly configured package.
Oh, so no more of those like
Exactly.
works on my machine excuses.
Yeah, no more finger pointing.
I'm curious though, how does this whole container thing actually work?
Sure.
The video mentions Docker images.
Right.
I'm still a little fuzzy on like the details.
Okay, so think of a Docker image as like a blueprint for your container.
Okay.
It's kind of like a recipe that outlines all the ingredients
Yeah.
and steps needed to create a fully functional instance of your application.
Okay.
And just like a recipe,
Right.
you can use a single Docker image to create multiple containers.
So if the image is the blueprint,
Exactly.
the container is the actual house
Right.
built from that blueprint.
Yeah, and one of the biggest advantages of this approach is portability. Because Docker containers are self-contained,
Right.
you can run them on any machine that has Docker installed,
Wow.
regardless of the underlying operating system.
So it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
If it's Windows, Mac,
Nope,
Linux,
it just works.
that's where that analogy to shipping containers comes in, right? Like
Okay.
it's standardizing the way we transport software,
Absolutely.
which makes the whole process
Yeah.
much smoother and more efficient.
And just like shipping containers,
Mm-hmm.
Docker containers are incredibly lightweight.
Okay.
They don't require you to virtualize an entire operating system
Right.
like traditional virtual machines do.
Okay, hold on a second.
Sure.
This is where I start to get a little confused.
Okay.
What's the difference between a Docker container and a virtual machine?
All right, so that's a common point of confusion.
Yeah, the video touches on it, but could you like break it down for me a little bit
Absolutely.
in a way that I can understand?
So imagine you want to send a piece of furniture to a friend. Okay. With a virtual machine, it's like shipping the entire furniture factory. All the tools, the machinery, the raw materials needed to build that piece of furniture from scratch.
Okay.
It's bulky and takes a long time to set up.
So with Docker, it's like sending just the pre-assembled
Exactly.
piece of furniture
Right.
ready to go.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
So Docker shares the kernel of the host operating system, which is like the basic foundation of any computer.
Right.
And it only virtualizes the application layer,
Okay.
which is where your software actually runs.
Right.
This makes Docker containers much smaller
Okay.
and faster to start up.
So less overhead,
Exactly.
more efficiency.
More efficiency.
I'm starting to see the appeal.
Yeah.
But if Docker is so lightweight and portable,
Yeah.
why would anyone even bother with virtual machines?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So while Docker is fantastic for a lot of use cases,
Okay.
there are situations where virtual machines might still be the preferred choice.
Okay.
For example, if you need to run applications
Hmm.
with completely different operating systems,
Okay.
VMs offer more flexibility.
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, it is.
VMs give you more control and compatibility.
Right.
Docker prioritizes
Speed and portability.
speed and portability.
Like, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it all comes down to, understanding the strengths and limitations
Right.
of each technology
Right.
and choosing the right tool for the job.
That's great advice.
Right.
Now I'm itching to see
Okay.
how Docker actually works in practice.
Yeah,
The video starts with that classic hello world example.
absolutely.
Can we walk through that
Sure.
and see how easy it is to get started with Docker?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's explore those basic commands
Okay.
and get you comfortable with the Docker workflow.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, so we've got like the basics down, containers, images,
Yeah.
the whole portability thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm ready to see Docker in action.
Okay.
The video dives in some commands.
Right.
And I have to admit,
Yeah,
the command line can still be a bit intimidating
I get it.
for me.
Yeah, it can be a little scary at first.
But it seems like Docker has done a good job of
Absolutely.
making it user-friendly.
They have.
Remember those
Yeah.
Docker pull
Yeah.
and Docker run commands from the video?
Oh, yes.
Those are like,
Your Docker starter pack.
yeah.
You'll use them all the time.
So Docker pull is, like we said,
Yeah.
grabs the image we want from Docker Hub,
Right?
like downloading a recipe.
Exactly.
What about Docker run?
Oh, okay.
I remember seeing some extra like flags in there.
Yes.
What's the deal with those?
Could I? Those flags give you more control
Okay.
over how the container runs.
Okay.
For example, the IT flag,
Okay.
which stands for Interactive Terminal,
Mm-hmm.
basically lets you jump inside the running container.
So it's like opening a window
Yeah.
to like a fully functional Ubuntu system
Yeah,
right on my own machine.
exactly.
That's pretty nice.
It is pretty cool.
So instead of just running a command like in a black box,
Yeah.
I can actually tinker around
You can
inside the
even-
container environment.
You can run commands, install packages, edit files,
Wow.
anything you would do
So anything I do
on a regular Ubuntu system.
on a regular Ubuntu system.
Yeah.
And the best part is
Yeah,
all those changes are isolated
they are.
within the container.
Exactly.
They won't affect my host system at all.
It's like a sandbox
Yeah.
for experimenting without worrying about breaking anything.
I like
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
A sandbox.
Yeah, the video shows some basic commands,
Yeah.
like listing files
Wow.
and creating directories inside the container. Just simple ways to demonstrate
Yeah.
how you interact with the container's file system.
Okay.
You're essentially operating within a self-contained environment, free to explore and modify without any risk to your main system.
What happens when I'm done playing around in the container?
Okay.
How do I close up shop?
Just typing exit
Okay.
in the container shell will do the trick.
Okay.
It's like logging out of a remote session.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind the container itself
Mhm.
might still be running in the background,
Okay.
even if you've closed the terminal window.
So it's like leaving the lights on in a room,
It is
even after you've walked out.
a good analogy.
How do we make sure everything is shut down properly?
That's where the Docker stop command comes in.
Okay.
The video explains how you can use it
Right.
to gracefully stop a running container.
Right. I'm starting to get the hang of these
Good.
basic commands.
All right.
But let's go back to this whole Docker versus virtual machine thing for a second.
Okay.
We touched on it earlier.
Yeah,
But the video seems to emphasize that a lot of people
they do.
get them confused.
Right.
Can we unpack that?
Absolutely.
A little bit more.
It's a common misconception.
Yeah.
While both technologies offer virtualization,
Right.
they do it in very different ways.
Okay.
Docker containers
Mm-hmm.
share the kernel of the host OS,
Right.
which makes them incredibly lightweight
Okay.
and efficient.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like building a house on an existing foundation
Okay.
instead of starting from scratch.
So it's all about efficiency and speed
Efficiency and speed are key.
with Docker.
Yeah.
But hold on, the video also mentions that
Right.
virtual machines can run
Right.
a wider range of operating systems.
They can.
Is that a significant advantage?
It can be, depending on your needs.
Okay.
VMs can run any operating system,
Wow.
even ones that are completely different from the host OS.
Okay.
Docker, on the other hand,
Mhm.
is primarily focused on Linux-based containers.
So if I needed to run a Windows application
Well, yeah.
on a Mac, for example,
Yeah,
I'd probably be better off with a virtual machine.
you probably would.
Okay, that clears things up a little bit.
Good.
It seems like Docker has really revolutionized
It has
the way we think about developing and deploying software.
Absolutely.
I remember the video briefly mentioned deployments.
Yeah, we touched on it.
Can we dive into that a little more?
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
deployments are where Docker really shines.
Okay, I'm really starting to see the power of Docker.
Mm,
We've covered containers, images,
right.
and even tackled that Docker versus VM debate.
Yeah.
But the video kind of hints at something even more game-changing: deployments.
Yeah.
I have to admit, deployments have always felt like a little bit of a black box to me.
Yeah.
Like, what actually happens during a deployment?
So deployments are often the most challenging part
Right.
of the software development lifecycle.
Okay.
It used to involve a lot of manual configuration, server setup, and troubleshooting.
Oh, yeah.
But Docker changes all that.
Okay.
It's like having a universal adapter for your application.
Or universal adapter.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So Docker allows you to package your entire application
Okay.
and its dependencies into a container.
Right.
This container becomes a self-contained unit
Okay.
that can be deployed to any environment that supports Docker.
So it doesn't matter if it's
Doesn't matter.
a cloud platform,
Yep.
a virtual machine,
Uh-huh.
or a physical server.
It runs the same way everywhere.
So instead of configuring each server individually,
Right.
I can just ship the Docker container
Yep.
and know that my application will run consistently,
Exactly.
regardless of the underlying infrastructure.
That's the beauty of it.
That's amazing.
It eliminates that "it works on my machine" problem
Right.
on a much larger scale.
I can see how this is a huge advantage,
It is.
especially in today's world
Absolutely.
of cloud computing and
Yeah.
diverse deployment environments.
Exactly.
So it sounds like Docker's taking a lot of the guesswork out of deployments.
It is.
Could you give me like a real-world example of how this actually plays out?
Sure. Like, let's say.
So imagine you're building a web application.
Yeah.
Traditionally,
Uh-huh.
you would need to set up a web server,
Right.
a database,
Mhm.
and configure all the dependencies on each server you deploy to.
Okay.
With Docker, you can package your entire application stack,
Okay.
including the web server, the database, and your code,
Wow.
into a single container.
So it's like shipping a pre-configured
It is.
mini environment.
Exactly. That's ready to go.
And then you can deploy this container to a cloud platform
Okay.
like AWS or Google Cloud
Right.
with just a few commands.
Wow.
No more complex server configurations, no more dependency headaches.
That's incredible.
Your application runs in its isolated environment exactly as you designed it.
I'm starting to see how this could be a game changer,
It is.
especially for teams that deploy frequently.
Absolutely.
Like, it could really speed up the development process
It does.
and reduce the risk of errors.
For sure.
The video also mentions microservices. How does Docker fit into that world?
So microservices are all about breaking down large applications
Okay.
into smaller independent services.
Okay.
Each service can be developed, deployed, and scaled independently.
Right.
Docker is a perfect fit for this architecture
Okay.
because each microservice can be packaged into its own container.
So instead of having one giant
Oh.
monolithic application,
Yeah,
you have a collection of smaller, more manageable containers,
exactly.
each responsible for a specific function.
Precisely. And this modularity offers a lot of advantages.
Okay.
It makes it easier to develop and maintain complex applications,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows for more flexibility in terms of scaling and deployment.
Right.
If one service experiences issues, it doesn't bring down the entire application.
That's huge in terms of reliability
It is.
and fault tolerance.
Absolutely.
Wow. Docker really seems to be at the forefront of modern software development practices.
It's changing the game.
Is there anything else we should know about Docker before we wrap up?
Well, Docker is a constantly evolving ecosystem.
Okay.
There are always new tools and features being developed.
Right.
But the key takeaway is this.
Okay.
Docker makes development and deployment
Mhm.
smoother, faster, and more reliable.
So what's the next step for our listener who is, eager to explore Docker further?
The best way to learn is by doing.
Okay.
There are tons of resources available online,
Right.
including tutorials, documentation,
Mm.
and pre-built images on Docker Hub.
Okay.
Start experimenting with the basic commands.
Yeah.
Try building a simple application in a container
Mhm.
and explore the vast Docker ecosystem.
Well, you've heard it here first.
Right?
Docker's changing the game.
It is.
It's not just a tool for developers.
Right.
It's a way of thinking about software development and deployment.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time.